Eric returns home, where his mother, Sandy, asks him about the dance. He casually replies that he had a great time. Meanwhile, Claire sits in her car outside her house, feeling exhilarated and in disbelief about what just occurred. She enters the house and finds Matt practicing with his bandmates. He invites her to join them, but she declines, claiming exhaustion and a desire to go to bed. In his room, Eric sits on his bed, reveling in the fact that he slept with his attractive teacher. The next day, Eric meets up with Logan and Josh. When they inquire about his whereabouts the previous night, he claims he wasn't feeling well and went home. However, when Logan steps away, Josh confronts Eric, reminding him of their long-standing friendship and his ability to discern lies. Josh persistently questions him about what he was actually doing after the dance. To satisfy his friend's curiosity, Eric fabricates a story about being with a girl he met at work, emphasizing that the situation is complicated. Minutes later, as he fondly recalls the events of the previous night, Eric sends Claire a text expressing his inability to stop thinking about her. Claire reads the message but immediately deletes it from her phone. On Monday, Allison confronts Eric about leaving the dance without informing her. He apologizes, citing illness as the reason, but Allison remains suspicious and walks away. In class, Eric finds himself unable to avert his gaze from Claire as she hands out graded papers. When she praises Eric's work, he can't help but smile. Later, Claire requests to speak to Eric privately. She instructs him to meet her at their usual spot after soccer practice, much to his delight. While waiting in the empty parking lot, Eric notices Claire's new social media post and likes it. Claire receives the notification, sees Eric's action, and curses under her breath. When Eric gets into her car, she scolds him for liking her post, emphasizing the need for discretion since her husband could see it. Claire establishes ground rules for their arrangement, including keeping their relationship secret, meeting only on Mondays, avoiding secret encounters on school grounds, refraining from taking photos, and changing her name on Eric's phone. Eric demonstrates that he has already changed her name on his phone and promptly unlikes her post as requested. After agreeing to the terms, they proceed to make love. That evening, Claire returns home to find Matt preparing dinner. He notices the troubled expression on her face and asks if she's okay. She assures him that everything is fine, but mentions having a difficult day at work. He invites her closer, and she begins undressing him to pleasure him. Days later, while Eric socializes with his friends at school, his gaze meets Claire's on the second floor. Claire approaches Catherine, the French teacher, and asks if she would like to go out for drinks on Saturday, to which Catherine agrees. On Saturday, Eric stays home to babysit his younger brothers while their mother goes on a date. Meanwhile, Claire and Catherine enjoy their drinks at a bar. Claire excuses herself to the restroom and impulsively takes a suggestive selfie, which she sends to Eric. He eagerly responds, but when she suggests meeting up immediately, he declines, disappointing her. However, when she doesn't reply, he changes his mind and informs her that he will be at their usual meeting spot in 30 minutes. Before leaving, he asks Leanne to watch his brothers in his absence. Soon, he arrives at the parking lot, where Claire awaits him in her car. She immediately expresses her desire to make love, but Eric stops her. He explains that her message confused him because she was the one who established the rule of meeting only on Mondays. Dismissing his concerns, Claire kisses him, but he interrupts again to express that he wants more than just a physical relationship. Eric confesses that he genuinely likes Claire for her intelligence, beauty, and uniqueness. Flattered, Claire reciprocates her feelings, causing Eric to beam with happiness, and they proceed to make love. Later, upon returning home, Eric encounters his furious mother. She questions his whereabouts and why he left his brothers with someone else. He lies, claiming he went to Logan's to return a textbook, but his mother sees through his deception as she had called his friend. She informs him that his brother got injured while he was gone, and Eric feels immense guilt for his negligence. Weeks later, Claire and Eric find themselves at a rental house within a vast ranch. Eric playfully records a video as Claire humorously gives him a tour. While admiring the beautiful view outside, Claire wishes him a happy birthday and reminds him to delete the video, which he promptly does. During dinner, Claire opens up about losing her mother to cancer when she was 9. She becomes emotional and apologizes, but Eric reassures her that it's okay and expresses his interest in learning more about her life. The next morning, they wake up in bed together. As her phone rings with a call from her husband, she steps away to answer it. Eric observes her from the kitchen as she talks to Matt outside. To end the call, she informs her husband about an upcoming seminar she needs to attend. Upon returning to the house, she notices Eric acting distant and apologizes, explaining that she had no choice but to answer the call. As he begins to walk away, she stops him. Seconds later, Eric commands her to remove her undergarments. Surprised by his statement, she hesitates, but he insists firmly. She complies, and they make love on the table. That afternoon, the couple spends time in the backyard, where Eric introduces Claire to illegal substances. Later that night, Claire confesses that she had never been with a man before marrying Matt. She explains that it was a personal choice, which is why she didn't drink or date in college. Curious about Eric's past, she asks about his previous relationship with Allison, to which he reveals it lasted 6 months. Claire remarks that he will meet many women in college and emphasizes that he has his whole life ahead of him. Hurt by her words, Eric distances himself for a moment. However, she follows him and questions his cold behavior. Eric admits that he didn't appreciate her casual mention of other women he will meet in college and how she will return to her husband as if their trip never happened. Claire explains that he won't want to be with her when he's in college because he will have moved on. She reminds him that she is risking her entire life just to be with him and expresses her sadness about having to go back home the next day when all she wants is to stay with him. Overwhelmed, she starts crying, and Eric embraces her, apologizing and confessing his love for her. She reciprocates, bringing joy to the teenager, and they head to the bedroom to make love. The following day, they cherish their last moments alone on the ranch before driving back to town. Eric's mother welcomes him home and expresses hope that he had a great time on the trip with his friends. Before she leaves for work, she wishes him a happy birthday and leaves him at the kitchen table with his cake. Meanwhile, Claire waits at the bar for Matt's band to start playing. Catherine joins her, and Claire thanks her for accepting the invitation. When the bartender ignores them, Catherine discreetly grabs a bottle from behind the bar and they sneak out to the parking lot to drink it. Catherine inquires about Claire's whereabouts over the weekend, and she responds by saying she was in Dallas for a conference. However, Catherine knows she's lying. She confidently states that Claire has been glowing lately, and it's obvious that she's having an affair. Shocked, Claire denies the accusation and insists that she was on a work trip with colleagues from her old school. But under Catherine's persistent questioning, she finally admits to the affair. Catherine, seemingly amused, understands why Claire is doing it. At first, Claire refuses to reveal the identity of her lover. But when she mentions that he is younger than her, it piques Catherine's curiosity even more. In her intoxicated state, Claire confesses to Catherine that she is seeing Eric, her student. Initially thinking it's a joke, Catherine laughs, but her expression quickly turns to shock and concern when she realizes Claire is serious. She reminds Claire that Eric is her student and that a relationship with him is a significant abuse of power, despite him being technically of age. Claire tries to justify their love for each other and their genuine relationship as consenting adults. However, Catherine insists that she has no choice but to report Claire to the school administration. She walks away, leaving Claire to realize the gravity of her actions and the consequences that will follow now that the secret is out. The following morning, consumed by guilt, Claire confesses to Matt that she is having an affair with her student. Meanwhile, 2 police officers visit Eric's home to speak to him. They inquire about the nature of his relationship with Claire. Eric explains that she tutors him to help with school, but admits that he doesn't know much about her personally. When the officers ask if anything inappropriate has happened between them or if they engaged in any misconduct, Eric denies their implications. However, they inform him that the school was already informed and knows the entire story, including their weekend trip. Encouraging him to tell the truth, they explain that lying won't make things easier for Claire or for him. Simultaneously, a distressed Matt confides in Claire's brother Nate, who is a police officer. He reveals that Claire has been having a sexual relationship with her student, whom she was tutoring. Initially skeptical, Nate questions the validity of the claim, but Matt insists that Claire admitted to it herself. Nate tries to calm Matt by suggesting that if the student confirms it was consensual, perhaps they won't press charges. Later, the student calls the teacher to inform her about the police visit. He confesses his confusion and desperation, seeking guidance on what to do. However, the teacher can only respond with tears before abruptly ending the call. Meanwhile, Logan enters his house and finds his mother, Victoria, on the phone. She shares the news that Eric is involved with their teacher, Ms. Wilson. Confused and in disbelief, Logan struggles to process the information. That afternoon, Matt returns home and discovers his wife crying in bed. He expresses his desire to save their marriage, but she questions how he can bear to look at her in light of the situation. Matt insists that their 10 years together shouldn't be wasted and reveals that he spoke to Nate and shared everything. He proposes seeking legal assistance and therapy, believing that they can overcome this ordeal. Elsewhere, Logan and Josh talk to Eric about the widespread rumors. When Eric expresses concern for the teacher's potential consequences, Logan argues that she, as the adult and authority figure, is the one with issues for sleeping with a student. They urge Eric not to worry about her fate, but he feels misunderstood and walks out of the room. During dinner, Matt informs Claire that he took a few days off work. She decides to go for a walk to clear her mind. Overwhelmed, she gets into her car and drives away. Soon after, she picks up Eric and they park in a secluded area. Eric apologizes for telling the police everything, but Claire reassures him, recognizing that they would have found out eventually. Filled with fear about her future, she voices her concerns. In response, Eric suggests they run away together at that very moment. Though she considers the idea crazy, Eric insists they belong together and professes his love for her. They share a kiss and end up in a motel on the outskirts of town. Claire receives a call from Nate, who expresses anger and pleads for her to return home, highlighting the potential legal implications of their situation. In the motel room, an intoxicated Claire asks Eric if she was a good teacher. He affirms her abilities, expressing his gratitude at being chosen by a beautiful woman like her. Callously, she responds that her entire life is ruined because of him. Hurt, the teen tries to walk away, but the woman pulls him back into bed and they engage in a sexual encounter. The next morning, Eric leaves a sleeping Claire behind and steps out of the room to check his phone. He discovers missed calls and messages from his mother and friends expressing concern for his well-being. Meanwhile, the teacher wakes up and calls out for the teen, only to realize that he has already left. Eventually, Eric returns home where his mother embraces him, offering comfort as he cries in bed. Soon, Claire comes to the realization of what the right course of action is. She drives to the police station, mustering up the courage to walk towards the entrance. With apprehension, she stops midway, but eventually reaches the doors and surrenders herself to the authorities.